Just comb your hair, go and wash your face. It's been a real long time since you've seen the light of day. So let thoughts come as they may, beauty and parade. Everybody all smiles when you're back in the seat again. On board the Penny Express to a beautiful darkness. It's full steam ahead to ride the rails to our next destination. Yeah!
Hello everyone, it's Mo. I'm back and I just got done explaining what first-degree murder was to the youngest, most feral. Honestly, I wasn't even listening to trials. I was actually listening to a sports station. I'm trying to learn more about sports because I feel dumb when I do sports stories and I know that these words are supposed to mean something. But unfortunately, they had a kind of true crime element because there is just a sad, just heartbreaking story coming out of Texas where I guess a young boy at a track meet got stabbed, and I didn't realize it wasn't going to be about sports, y'all. That being said, this young boy at this track meet got stabbed after I guess he told another young man that he was sitting in the wrong area. And unfortunately, he passed away in his twin brother's arms. And then they get to the part in the story where they're like, yes, the, person who stabbed the other person is being held on first-degree murder. And they're like, okay, but how many degrees did he take to murder him? And I was like, no, it doesn't mean degrees of. So I kind of had to explain. I broke it down like this because I didn't want to go violence. I said, okay, guys, what if you guys like to play outside? So the law has decided that, for crimes, really bad crimes, if you took a long time to decide it, like if you had planned all day that you were going to go outside and you did go outside, the law looks at that planning differently than if you just looked out the window and saw it was pretty outside and then went outside. So that being said, I was trying to learn sports stuff. So just a terrible, awful story out of Texas. But let's hopefully try to clear out a good chunk of today before Mr. Mo comes home so we can get some leeway into day 5 done. Very sad story, just terribly sad. And then I turned it off so I could explain first-degree murder to my children because I'm the best mom ever. Yeah, I try to watch sports stuff and I get true crime gets stuck in there. I don't know how this happens. I will stop. You know what? I'm going to stay away from sports because I think that's how, I think I brought the true crime into sports. So I'll go ahead and stay away. And I believe, and you are welcome. Welcome to the Church of Mo. And we have dark chocolate, sarcasm, and all of the Moisms, even if Mo doesn't remember. We just ask that you leave your plastic recorders, well, in Guam. You're welcome. Awesome sauce. I love it. And thank you for joining in the chat. I will say that this is a good chat to kind of dip your toes in if you have a little bit of dark humor, a little bit of sarcasm, because you don't have to worry about any person most of the time getting offended. I have found as an awkward person, you just find, the people with dark humor and you stay over there because there's really not much you can do to offend them. No patchouli candles. That's right. I forgot. Okay, small amounts of patchouli as a deodorant, no. All right, let's let Mr. Leroy get back to talking, and we will see if he makes any more sense of. And I do get what he's saying as far as, his diagnosis of this being intentionally set was multifactorial. So it did kind of go with some bits of Linda's testimony, some bits of, the actual physical evidence or lack of evidence of there being a floor in, the living room, and, Todd Stermer smelling like gasoline. So I get all of those things. I guess I was just hoping for like a burning beaking lamp or something. I don't know, just something more.
So your conclusion, based on your review of the evidence, so I'm summarizing the gasoline and what was described by Linda Stermer, is this was an intentionally set fire. Is that correct?
Correct. And this also, I also use this to confirm my origin determination. She says the origin is in the main floor, first floor living room.
And so we've already kind of talked about what the first fuel ignited is earlier. Do you have an opinion as to what the first fuel ignited in this case was?
Yes, I do.
What was that?
The first fuel ignited was fumes from the gasoline.
And let's talk about that a little bit. How does gasoline burn, for lack of a better way to describe it?
Gasoline, as we know, is liquid. We put it in our lawnmowers and our cars. People who are unsafe sometimes try to use it to start their leaves burning. When you burn gasoline, it's actually not the liquid that burns, it's the vapor that comes off the gasoline that burns.
Oh.
So if you've ever seen videos of people pour gasoline on a pile of leaves and then they start walking up to it with something to light it, and it catches on fire before they get to the pile of leaves, that's because the vapors from the gasoline, the liquid gasoline, has now evaporated and spread into a vapor cloud until it hits an ignition source, and then it ignites.
And does the fact that the gasoline may be indoors or outdoors affect how that may happen?
The environment as a whole, indoors or outdoors, is going to affect, is there a wind, the temperature, if it's hotter outside, the gasoline is going to evaporate quicker. Any air currents are going to move the vapor around.
And in this case, I've already asked you what about ignition source. Did you determine what you believe to be the ignition source in this case?
The ignition source would have been open flame.
Do you have any idea what the source of the open flame may have been?
I do not know definitively what the open flame would be.
But we do know there was a fire burning in the fireplace per the statements of Linda Stermer.
There was open flame in the living room from statements and indications that there's logs, so there would have been open flame in the fireplace.
Now, we've talked about what you kind of touched on it already. What is a flash fire?
A flash fire is almost self-descriptive. It's a fire that immediately propagates quickly, so like a flash. It goes very...
Oh, see, and I was going to say the fire you make when you're wearing corduroy pants and you try to do the flash dance move. I had it on clear authority that the, Great Chicago Fire was started that way. That being said, I guess his definition makes much more sense.
Going very fast. It would be indicative of a gasoline fire.
So, for instance, when the vapors of a gasoline poured someplace are exposed to an open flame.
Correct. It's the vapors are going to ignite. The fire and the vapors are going to spread to the source, which is typically going to be the liquid gasoline, because that's where the source of the gasoline vapors came from. And then the fire is then going to make the liquid gasoline evaporate faster because it's hotter, and then it'll be burned more. And it'll burn faster until the gasoline, in some cases, is burned up.
And that was my next question. Can fire totally consume gasoline,
Yes,
leaving no trace?
it is possible. Yes.
And just so the record's clear, and Judge, I'm going to ask this as a leading question so we don't go afoul of anything. You're not offering any opinion here today as to who set this fire, correct?
No.
You have smoke around?
Okay, then when are we going to get the testimony in that Linda had an affair? I mean, thus point, both Todd and Linda could have done it, either Todd or Linda. So how are you going
I'd
to?
like to ask this. You indicated earlier there was a fuel oil furnace in this house. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is fuel oil different from gasoline?
It is.
How so?
So They're both petroleum products, but they're refined differently. If you were to take fuel oil and submit it to the laboratory for analysis, that would come back as a heavy petroleum distillate. The lab, and if you ever had 20 hertz, you probably described this better than I did, but it is different than gasoline. Gasoline can be determined specifically, where the other petroleum distillates are put into broad categories of heavy, medium, and light petroleum distillates. Fuel oil would be a heavy petroleum distillate, along with kerosene and some lamp oils.
Thank you. Nothing further. Thank you, Your Honor.
Not to discuss the case or do any research?
We are
Yeah.
going to skip the break. Do, 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 do. Oh. Oh, I almost want to just go past him, but that's bad.
Mr. Mueller, cross?
Thank you.
No worries, Tanya. If you can, Tanya, take notes and then explain to me who the hell all these people are. I jumped off the Hales train about after, well, the third time of trying to do a panel on Lynette's for deposition. I just decided I don't have the energy or the attention span for it. That being said, it has just blown up into almost Karen Reed, level of craziness.
Morning, sir. Good morning.
You and I have met before one time, correct?
Yes,
June of 2001?
I'll take your word for the date.
Okay, if you take my word, it's the 16th and 17th of June 2021, not one.
That sounds correct.
And I asked you a bunch of questions, right?
Yes,
And you were under oath?
yes,
And you told me the truth?
yes,
Under penalty of perjury?
yes.
Right. So if we look back at that testimony, we can take that as the truth, fair?
Depends on what you take of it.
I'm sorry?
Depends on what you take on it, but yes, it's the truth.
Okay. Can we agree as we start here, if you don't have a cause of the fire as being, suggesting an intentional fire, intentionally set fire, we don't have a crime of arson?
That is correct.
Okay. And we'll talk about the classifications, but you and I talked about that before, right?
Yes.
Okay.
There are 4 classifications of fires.
I guess we need to clarify with her from where it's referring.
Council knows, or.
Well,
knows.
it depends if you're talking about under the, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, all allowed if you understand the
Thank you.
question.
Let me break this down. You and I have talked about this before, right? There's an accidental fire, correct?
Correct.
That could be a toaster burned up. Fair?
Yes,
We have natural causes of fires. That would be lightning strikes, that kind of thing, right?
Correct.
Then we have what's called undetermined.
Correct.
You just can't tell, right?
Correct.
And sometimes the damage is so big and so much that you can't tell, right?
sometimes.
Sometimes. And it's not an embarrassment to you as a fire origin and cause expert to be able to say, I just can't tell, there's not enough here.
That's
Fair?
correct.
It wouldn't be embarrassing to you, right?
That's correct.
In fact, it would probably be intellectually honest to admit, I just can't tell. Fair?
That is correct.
Then we have an intentional, or an incendiary fire, it's called, right?
Correct.
And that would be, excuse me, correct me if I'm wrong, but an intentionally set fire under circumstances where a fire shouldn't happen.
Yes,
And that's what you're calling this,
correct.
an incendiary fire.
Yes.
And that's the one that supports a crime.
Correct.
And out of those 4 categories,
Yes.
only an incendiary fire supports crime, correct?
Not necessarily.
If you can't, let's go back to
No,
one thing.
okay, not necessarily. The crimes can be prosecuted with an undetermined cause. I've seen it in the past.
Okay. If you don't have a cause of a fire, you can't find the classification of the fire, fair? You can't tell what
Correct.
happened. You said the origin is the
Possibly.
where, correct?
Correct.
And the cause is the why.
Correct.
And if you don't have the why, you can't say a crime occurred, fair?
I don't make the determination if a crime has occurred.
If arson, I'm just talking about arson.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. I think we're asking for legal conclusions at this point in time. Prosecutor's office could charge a crime based on an undetermined fire. He's already testified to it, so I think we got to ask an answer. We're also asking for legal
The
conclusions.
question is simply, if you don't have the cause, the why, you can't even classify the fire. You can't even classify the fire because you can't tell why it happened, right?
Well, the classification you just said was undetermined.
You can't tell why a fire happened. You can't classify it, right?
Objection, ask an answer.
Yeah, I didn't get an answer for him.
Yeah, all allowed. I
Yes
just
or no?
have an answer.
If I can't tell the what, the why, then it
Yeah.
would be classified as an undetermined fire.
Okay.
Who's on first?
Let's talk about this excavation you said that you did, all right? On January 8th,
Yes,
On January 8th, you did an excavation, and as we know, the living room was the area of origin, correct?
Correct.
I'm going to show you, we've already admitted this as Exhibit O, floor plan of the living room. You've seen this before, right?
I have not.
Does that represent to you what the floor plan of the house looked like?
He wouldn't know what the floor plan
Yes.
is.
Okay? And you know that the living room, as you said, was the area of origin of the fire, right?
Correct.
And you excavated that to get important data.
I excavated the basement that was below the living room.
The living room you showed us on that aerial photo had collapsed into the basement.
Correct.
So anything regarding the living room would have been in the basement.
Correct.
And you've testified that that was 2 feet of rubble, correct?
I didn't say 2 feet of rubble.
Okay, let's look. If I may approach, Your Honor? Thank you. Okay, your prior testimony. in this
Ooh,
case.
yes,
Why don't we look
binders.
at the part that says Dalbear 1? Okay?
Talk office supplies with me. I mean, maybe this defense attorney's growing on me.
Today or now the previous hearing, I think is where we're going, but I think it's confusing.
You have testified that the area,
If you could just clarify what he's saying now, and then, are you pursuing prior inconsistent, or?
you're
refresh
telling us you
memory?
don't know how deep the rubble was in the basement that you excavated?
No, you asked me if I testified to 2 feet of rubble.
Do
And I-
you admit there's 2 feet of rubble in the basement?
Approximately 2 feet of rubble. That's an approximation. I never measured it.
Could be 3.
I never measured it.
Okay. If there's 2 feet of rubble, and we know from the living room that it's 18 by 18, you see that?
Yes.
Yes?
Between the 118,
18 feet. This was 18 feet.
okay.
And there's a little bit more. You'd have to add the area to, right?
Yes.
Do you know how to do that? Calculate that area?
Yes.
Sines, cosines, tangents, Pythagorean theorem?
I'm aware of how to do,
Oh, hell no, this man is not bringing mathology into there. Look, I failed Mrs. Fleener's class of trigonometry fair and square, and I told her deuces, Mrs. Fleener, I'm never going to be doing trigonometry again. Now, sir, you will not make me take back that promise. Hell no, I made that as a mean, angry, hateful 18-year-old person, and I will not be betraying that Mo. I will not be learning not one damn thing about finding area of nothing. Sorry, I think I just had an out-of-body trigonometry, flashback.
area.
Can we agree, like we had before, that that's about the total 20 by 20, roughly?
I'm just looking at the 118, and there's no 18, but that's, 18, yes, that's 18 by 18 with a little bit left. I didn't see the 18 at the bottom.
Okay, we say roughly 20 by 20?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, for God's sake, could y'all just get to a damn point at this point?
That's the area of origin, correct?
Yes.
And if we talk about a 20 by 20, if we measure from you roughly about to that first row, it's about 20 feet.
Oh my God, are we gonna do a My Cousin Vinny thing? Oh my God, we're gonna do a My Cousin Vinny thing. Yay! I'm still triggered that he would even ask the question. Tammy, I know that he's asking these questions to sort of to get to somewhere. I know he has an origin or an end point that he wants to get to. I don't know why we're measuring 20 by 20 now, but okay.
I don't know how far that is. 20, the first row? It's a little further than that, I think, but you have a measuring tape.
Would you like to hold the one and we'll measure it? Thank you. If I may.
Oh, for God's sake.
Oops, sorry. I actually need to do that.
That's the dummy end.
Uh-oh, he's gonna go right into Lunchbox, and he's gonna get into Lunchbox's territory, and he's
Okay.
gonna suplex him.
Yep.
If I told you that 20 feet was about, thank you, I'll go. From the jury box to about here,
Approximate.
approximately. So we have an area of origin in the living room of this whole area here, correct?
Correct.
And you can't narrow it down where the fire started amongst anywhere in here,
I
correct?
cannot.
Could have started over in this area over here, right? Could have started by the fireplace,
Not against the fireplace.
but anywhere in here, you don't know.
Correct.
But you dug out the rubble, right?
Yes,
In this 18 by 20 by 20 spot, right?
Yes.
2 feet of rubble, correct?
approximately.
And you had a person with you, Greg Stormzan from the Michigan State Police,
Yes,
and you deposited the rubble, as I believe, on the west side and the back side of the house, correct?
I would have. Yes,
Well, you did, correct?
yes,
Put it on the west side of the house,
yes.
and you cleared the basement, because that's how you do it, right?
Not the entire basement, just the area underneath the living room.
So there would be basically a clear area of 18 by 18 in that house if somebody came after you, correct?
Yes,
You made this rubble pile, and this rubble pile should be, well, if we say 20 by 20 by 2, that's 800 cubic feet, right?
I don't know how much the rubble pile would have been.
Well, you didn't do 800 cubic feet of excavation and put that outside, did you?
I have no idea.
Did you create a rubble pile of approximately 4 feet by 8 feet and 7 feet high?
It was not a 7-foot-high pile.
Let's go to your testimony at that Dalbert hearing on 162, lines 7 to 11.
Your Honor, can we approach real quick?
Oh no. Let's see who wins this sidebar. It's gonna be a rumble in the jungle at the sidebar. We have Timu Pitbull and the Lunchbox, the prosecutor.
You there?
Yes, on the first page, yes. Daubert 1, yes.
Well, just prior hearing on page 162 at line 7. You with me?
And I apologize for the background noise. My neighbors have a fleet
162,
of lawn blowers.
What line?
Line 7.
Line 7.
You had been asked, so outside the house was the area that you laid all the debris, correct?
Yes,
Your answer. Again, we didn't lay it out, so it was placed in a pile. The pile, in my recollection, would probably have been 3 or 4 feet by 6 or 8 feet and 7 feet high. But I don't have a great recollection of the size of the pile after we excavated, right?
correct.
So if somebody came after you, were there on the 8th, like somebody on the 15th, a week later, we should see behind the house a picture of a 4-foot by 8-foot by 7-foot high pile of rubble.
I have no idea what the rubble pile would look like after I left.
Well, do you think somebody would have taken it and
Fair
moved it?
point.
No,
You
but it's
think-
possible.
Do you think somebody would have put it back in the house?
I have no idea.
Yeah. The pile that you had,
Did you take a picture of your piles,
the
sir?
rubble that you would have been removing, and I'm gonna show you defendant's exhibit B. Show me these are your photos.
This man is running out of office space.
Your Honor, are we going to do all of his photos or just a selection of the photographs?
Select photos. The ones I gave you yesterday, counsel?
No, I understand that. Are they just
They are select photos, not every photo.
in a, I respect that, and I understand that. Are they separated from a giant exhibit of other photographs, or are they just?
They are in exhibit B by themselves. You tell me if those are your photos.
So you want him to review the entire binder right now?
No,
Oh,
they're just
okay.
15 photos.
Which 15 though?
Oh, and I want to make sure, is this exhibit B? I will, once,
You know which ones to look at?
yes.
Okay.
These are the photos look like that have been previously entered into evidence by the prosecution.
Some are the same, some are different.
Looks like
Okay, dude, then
47
help him.
Under B is the same as defense 34-9. But this one's very dark. Okay. Would you like me to continue?
Pardon?
Would you like me to continue through B on photos?
Please. All those photos you identified for the prosecutor, you had reviewed your photos before this trial, right?
Yes,
And you identified those easily as your photos, right?
correct,
And a lot of these are just duplicates of your photos.
but I'm going to make sure.
So determine that.
Defense attorney, Try not being a dick every day. Try giving it up just like for the afternoons for Lent. And then every day go. Have you taken a Midol, sir? Because I swear you have. I have never met a more pissy man.
56 is the same photo as 3411 with prosecution. '57 is one of my photos, but not with the prosecution exhibits. 58 is one of my photos. It's in the prosecution exhibit 3412.
All right, we're gonna let him look through all the photos
Looks exhibit.
so that we can finally get to maybe a flippin' flapjack point.
Is one of my photos.
62 there. You good?
Yes.
We can see that fireplace in the basement, right?
Yes.
Right here. So basically, what we're showing is the living room area, and the living room extends out toward the bay window to the left.
No,
right?
this photo's taken from underneath the bay window.
Okay. You're saying the fireplace is directly across from the bay window. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Where you have the FP on
So
your drawing.
what I'm seeing then is entirely the living room.
Yes.
Now,
Or the basement under the living room.
the living room that had collapsed and had the 2 feet of rubble that you excavated and cleared, you and Mr. Stormzang.
Yes.
So, if somebody like Mr. Shinsky came, and Mr. Shinsky took a photo a few days later, what we should see is a photo of the back of the house where you laid it out, right? Am I correct?
Yes.
And what we should see somewhere in here, in the back west side, is a pile 7 feet by 8 feet
No,
by
that's the
7 feet
front.
high, correct?
Isn't it?
I do not see that there.
You certainly don't.
Oh, never mind, that is the back.
You also didn't document the excavation, did you?
I did not take a photograph of the excavation once completed. That is a mistake that I have admitted to, and it's a mistake on my part.
You know the importance of documentation, correct?
Correct.
Important for corroboration, correct?
I've got some.
Okay.
It's important for corroboration, correct?
It is important to document the scene.
Because you want to have corroboration in case somebody asks you, did you actually do some excavation? You want to be able to show proof.
Correct.
That's called corroboration. True?
You can call it that.
Okay. You didn't take any photographs, right,
What do you mean, didn't take any
of your
photographs?
excavation.
Yes,
You didn't write in your report, your official Michigan State Police report, anything about an excavation, correct?
I think there may have been a section, but without reviewing my report, I can't be sure.
Well,
We just happen to have your
did you
report.
testify in a
right
hearing
here.
that you didn't document it in your report?
I may have.
And if you testified in that hearing, that would have been under oath,
Correct.
and you would review your
Sometimes.
file,
Correct.
and you reviewed your report,
Correct.
and you told us the truth when you told us you didn't put it in your report?
Correct.
You also didn't even take any notes during your whole scene inspection, did you?
What is your definition of notes?
Well, things like the jury was taking down to document you did what you did.
Okay, we're gonna give Dick Attorney just this one snarkiness because I'm sorry, Mr. Leroy. Well, what do you mean by notes? I mean Post-its. I mean something of a sort where you take, a chisel and a clay tablet and you write some notes. Like, we're gonna baconate that. I think this might be the only time that I've allowed the defense to be a dick, but that was definitely a dick answer. You can match energies here.
Your whole scene inspection, did you?
What is your definition of notes?
Well, things like the jury was taking down to document you did what you did.
When
Did you take any notes, yes or no?
I dictated the scene examination directly into the report on a recorder. I've for years, been doing this 20 years, I typically don't take copious written notes on scene examination.
Okay. We don't have anything contemporaneous in terms of any notes of yours of the excavation itself, fair?
There are no notes of the excavation.
Okay. Even though that's such a critical aspect of fire investigation.
The notes aren't critical, it's the information in the report that's critical.
The excavation is critical in a fire excavation, true?
Did you say an excavation is important in excavation?
The excavation process in a fire investigation is critical, am I right?
Yes.
Because that's where you get the evidence that might show how the fire progressed.
That is a step that may develop evidence.
And that is a step where you collect data, it's called.
Yes.
And that data will help you find evidence that might point to the why, the cause.
Possibly.
You can't overlook doing an excavation when you're doing a fire investigation, right?
Depends on the fire investigation.
You testified that, you correct me if I'm wrong, that the reason you didn't take any photographs, make any notes, is because it was a long day that day.
I never said anything about notes. I did testify that there's no photographs that should have been taken. I don't know why I didn't take it. It's possible. It was a long day, and because we didn't find anything of notable significance in the excavation, that it's possible I forgot to take the photograph.
Well-
Photographs of post-excavation.
Let me see if you turn to D2 there,
We're talking transcripts again?
your book of the transcripts.
Okay.
D2,
Marla?
what is that?
Last one, last tab.
So when you say D, you're referring to Dauber, correct?
I got that, although I wasn't allowed to read the Ken Starr
Read from
report.
Page 42 to yourself, line 13 to 16.
And I'm sorry, I didn't hear the expression read out loud, or,
Do yourself,
okay. 42 to what lines?
line 13 to 16.
Yes,
Okay. Does that refresh your memory that the reason you forgot to take a photograph or note your documentation was because it was a long day?
it does. Possible a long day.
You were tired
Yes,
after a long day.
yes.
So you didn't document this critical aspect because you were tired because it was a long day. Fair?
Suzanne.
Let me ask you something. You've trained fire investigators, right?
I have.
Okay. If you had a rookie fire investigator you were training, would you accept such a poor excuse as, boss, I didn't do what I was supposed to do and take any pictures and notes because it was a long day. I was tired.
What do you mean accept it? Of course I would. Because if that's what happened, you're going to
Okay.
accept it.
Wouldn't you maybe ask that person, why didn't you go back the next day?
We're calling for speculation, Your Honor, Jackson.
This is thank you.
That's
You
not
would ask that-
What I'd say,
speculation.
because it depends on the scene. Everything depends on the scene.
If he says that I didn't do it because it was a long day and I was tired, and he's a rookie investigator,
Jack Jackson answered, Your Honor.
you would ask him, why didn't you go back the next day?
Well, I'll allow this one.
Thank you. True?
I don't know what I would say.
Okay. Is there a law that says you can only go and do a scene investigation one day?
No,
Is there any Michigan State Police policy that says you can do a scene investigation only once?
no.
Okay. And after you were the law enforcement person responsible for the scene in terms of the fire investigation, right?
In terms of the fire investigation.
So after January 8th, you didn't come back
Okay,
anymore?
I did not.
so he's, like just jovially annoying because he's being pedantic. Again, it's that, I am only going to answer, ticky-tacky. If you use a word wrong, I'm going to, completely act like I don't understand the question. Yeah. So he's annoying me because even though he seems like just a happy-go-lucky guy, he's making this last longer. And then the attorney, they're just both being annoying.
And you release a scene to people like Mr. Shinsky, right?
Correct?
And Len McHugh, do you know him?
Yes,
He was on the scene a couple days after you,
yes.
right? Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about your origin and the basis for your origin opinion. You went through a whole lot of things about how you ruled out various areas in the house, right?
Correct.
And if we look at New York skyline,
Ooh, he has a
Get back on here.
wireless
If we
hookup.
look at your investigation, I'll get it back in a second. You did the physical investigation, all the physical evidence led you to the area of origin in the living room, correct?
All the data,
All the data. All the data, including what you said was very important information from Linda Stermer, correct?
correct.
Linda Stermer told you that she was in the basement, am I right?
I've never talked to Linda Stermer.
You
This
read a
is-
statement that Mr. Shinsky took an interview,
Yes,
but you relied on it, obviously.
yes,
And she said she's in the basement doing laundry. Yes.
Correct.
She hears this horrible scream upstairs, right?
correct,
She runs upstairs.
correct,
She sees the living room on fire.
correct,
She sees her husband on fire by the bedroom, you said, right?
correct.
Okay. Have you ever burned yourself on a stove or anything in your life?
Yes,
Okay. That pain is immediate, isn't it?
yes, but
That
I'm not a
pain-
medical expert, I can't testify to that.
You certainly can testify to your own experience that the pain was immediate to you, right?
Yes,
I'm not trying to be funny with you. Are we clear?
yes, sir.
I don't think that's appropriate.
I'm not clear what that last dialogue.
Well, I think we're about ready to get thrown down. And what the judge didn't hear is I'm not trying to be funny with you. Now, if this ends in a rear naked chokehold for somebody, I'm gonna be happy as heck.
dialogue was
He's
about it.
smirking
Okay,
at
well,
me.
you're being argumentative, so.
So, you've had burns and they were
He's smirking at me. Well, you're being a dick. Well, still, I don't appreciate it. Well, it seemed like, I mean, he didn't look like he was smiling any differently than he has this entire time. So I didn't rate that as a smirk. Like, honestly, defense attorney, you have to be used to people just smirking at you a lot.
immediate, correct?
Correct,
And they were painful, correct?
correct,
So, one of the things that NFPA cautions you is if you have a hypothesis that violates the laws of physics, that's an invalid hypothesis, right?
I'm not aware of that section, but proceed.
Okay. One of the rules of physics, we talked about Newton's laws of motion.
Yes,
No objection, Your Honor. I think we're getting into areas that's not proper for trial at this point in time. These laws of motion, this is physics, he's not a physics professor.
He's familiar with it, and we agreed.
Oh, well, some,
Thank you.
but I assume
Sir.
there's some relevance where you're going.
One fundamental law is you can't be in two places at the same time, can you?
correct,
So, if Linda Stermer is in the basement and she hears a scream and that burn injury is immediate, that means Todd Stermer caught fire and Linda was in a different room, correct?
correct.
Now, let's talk about some of the fundamentals of being.
Wait, we took all of the detour around when you could have just said, was Linda Stermer upstairs when she heard the scream? No. Then she was downstairs. Yes. So a good comedian doesn't try to be funny. They just are. Maybe he wasn't trying to be funny, but I laugh. She does kind of look like a grown-up Hermione from, or not Hermione, Ginny from Harry Potter. If Ginny got out of the horror business and decided to be a magical attorney.
Being an expert witness, one of the purposes or one of the things you have to do is obviously collect all the relevant data, correct?
Correct all the relative data that's available,
Relevant data
relevant data that's available.
that is available to you. What's available to you are witness statements, right?
Yes,
You can interview witnesses, nothing stops you.
no,
You can go to building departments
correct,
to get house records,
correct,
right? Do a lot of things that aren't just physically at the inspection site,
correct,
and that's all data gathering.
correct,
You can agree with me that in your fire investigation, you have to comply with the scientific method, correct?
correct,
And you describe that for us.
correct.
I'm going to show you what is proposed Exhibit D. You've seen this before?
Yes,
It's in your NFPA 921 book?
correct,
And it's what you follow?
Correct.
Correct?
correct,
And that's what you used in this case?
correct,
And this is what you followed in this case, correct?
Does it
Correct.
always have
And
a
this would illustrate
coffee
the steps
stain
for the
on
jury,
bottom?
correct?
correct.
All right, I move for the admission of Exhibit D.
object is relevant, Your Honor. It's also, I don't see why it's relevant to put this, can we not display it to the jury until the court's admitted it?
Obviously, the first,
What is your marking on that? What is it?
Exhibit D.
D?
Obviously, you said the first two steps are kind of the same in everything you do, every assignment. Find the origin and cause of the fire.
Correct.
So the real work starts when we're talking about collecting data, correct?
Correct.
When we collect data, you gather all the relevant evidence that you can to try to help you come to a conclusion, right?
Correct.
The next step is you analyze all the data that you've collected, correct?
Ladies, he went to Kinko's. Kind of like he went to Jared's, but, you know, he got a big old poster board.
Correct.
Then once you've analyzed that data, then you develop a hypothesis based on, here's the evidence I have, could it be this?
Correct.
Then you test the hypothesis, right,
Correct.
to disprove the hypothesis, correct?
To prove or disprove, both.
Okay. You're telling our jury that it's to prove it or disprove it.
When you're testing hypothesis, yes. To try to disprove it, yes.
If you can't rule it out, can't rule out a hypothesis, then you have to collect more data or develop another hypothesis, right?
Say that again.
If you can't rule out a hypothesis based on the data, then you
Why is this man trying to torture me with all the stuff I have forgotten since high school? This man is forcibly trying to take me through an entire STEM lesson in his testimony. And I did not, you know, consent to STEM.
you either have to get more data or develop a new hypothesis. Isn't that what NFPA 921 tells you?
Or, so you've jumped down to testing the hypothesis, correct?
We're on testing hypothesis.
Okay. So you're testing the hypothesis to see not just if it's ruled out, but also if it's ruled in. You're testing it to see if it is, if the hypothesis is ruled out, then it's not a valid hypothesis
It's an invalid hypothesis.
Correct.
Because you're able to rule it out from the
from the data.
data.
Correct.
And in this case, if the hypothesis was Linda Stermer was with Todd Stermer and somehow got gasoline on him, you're able to rule that out with the data, reliable data that you had that she was in the basement.
That was never a hypothesis, ma'am.
I'm asking, you're an expert witness. If the hypothesis is that Linda Stermer somehow did something with gasoline to cause Todd to be on fire,
Your Honor, I'm going to object. Can we vote, please?
That wasn't the hypothesis. That was not, where is our RA or our academic advisors? I fully remember dropping out of college twice. I did not sign up for any more classes. I mean, and if I did, he keeps lying, and it's almost to the egregious point that he tries to fashion these gotcha questions. Yeah. And we're going to go about another 30 minutes and then, your guess is as good as mine, Swab Bob. I don't know.
so you're an expert witness. You're an expert in fire investigation. You develop hypotheses, right?
Correct.
And you measure it against the reliable data, correct?
Correct.
The reliable data you had, as we talked about, was Linda was in the basement at the time she heard Todd yell,
Correct.
assuming he's on fire, correct?
He's yelling and a fire is discovered on him.
Okay. If the hypothesis is Linda was with Todd Stermer
That wasn't
and
ever.
somehow got gasoline on him, that's ruled out by your reliable data that she was in the basement.
That specific hypothesis, correct.
And there's other data that would suggest that Linda didn't have anything to do with any gasoline, isn't there?
I'm not aware of that hypothesis.
Well, how about Linda's clothes tested negative for gasoline?
Well, do you want me to?
Are you aware of that?
I am, and I'm aware of other
Okay,
data
I want you to
also.
go, just want you to answer my questions. You're aware that Linda's clothes tested negative for gasoline, correct?
That is true.
You are aware that the Michigan State Police brought a canine in, and the canine did not,
I'm going to object. That's for hearsay, Your Honor. It's not evidence.
he's relied on that collection of data, and including canine evidence. It's in his report.
Now we're talking 703, just like we've been dealing with all over this. That's facts are not evidence.
I'll sustain that objection.
You rely on all kinds of data when you're developing your hypotheses, right?
Correct.
One of the pieces of data that you rely on is testing.
Test, Lab testing,
lab
correct.
testing, and you also rely on things like Michigan State Police canine experts being called to the scene. True?
Your Honor, I guess we're dancing around the subject again here. I'm going to object as relevance.
Relevance, it goes directly to the issue of
I've already
relevance.
sustained the objection, Mr. Mueller. You can move on.
Were you present when there was a canine?
Objection, Your Honor.
Mr. Mueller, I've sustained
Mr.
the objection.
Are you aware, well, you were aware of the gray sweatpants, right?
Mr. Stermer's gray sweatpants?
Yes, you collected it.
Yes,
Right. Are you aware that they were 100% polyester?
I was not aware.
Data you could have collected.
It is possible.
Have you, in your past experience, tested the flammability of materials?
We object. I don't think he's an expert in textiles, Your Honor.
I'm just asking for his experience.
I think it's fair and within the range of his expertise, I'll overrule.
Go ahead.
I have not tested, I do not recall testing flammability of polyester.
You've tested materials.
I have not tested materials.
Are you aware of what polyester is?
It's a synthetic material,
Synthetic material made of plastics.
plastic polymers, correct.
Okay. And you understand that it doesn't just burn, it melts.
It can burn and melt at the same time.
Okay. So,
I
we
thought
talked
you
about
didn't know
collecting
anything
relevant
about
data.
textology.
Then we also have, as one of the main aspects of being a expert witness and an expert in general, is you have to keep kind of like an open book policy of document all your investigative techniques, correct?
I don't understand what you're asking.
You told us about the importance of documentation.
Correct?
And the importance of documentation is so others can review your work.
Correct.
And then you can defend your work if people are criticizing it.
That's a portion of documentation, yes.
Portion of documentation is your peers are going to review it, right?
Yes,
Your colleagues.
possibly.
And if you've said there was an intentional fire and you think it's arson and there becomes a criminal case, well, the defendant's expert needs to look at it as well.
I never called it arson, I call it incendiary.
Listen to me carefully. If you call something arson and it results in a,
I'm going to object. We've established that as a legal conclusion, and we should not be talking about that in this case.
I agree. I'll sustain that objection.
okay, if your opinions result in a criminal charge, the suspect or the defendant has a right to look at your stuff,
Correct?
and it needs to be complete.
They have to look at all of my material.
And it needs to be complete and thorough.
They can look at all my material as is.
So they can compare what you're saying you did to what you did by your
Correct.
documents. Corroboration again, right?
Okay? Correct.
So we don't just have to take your word for it, right?
Correct.
Howdy, squid pro
And
quo.
then finally, you have to kind of make a good faith effort, play devil's advocate with yourself, right?
Correct.
How could I be wrong, right?
Correct.
Did I miss something?
Correct.
And you did all that in this case
Yes.
to rule out all the things that you ruled out.
Terrell is many of the things that I could think of and that I had indications of.
Now, let's talk about one thing here. This 921 book is the primary training guide for all fire investigations, correct?
It is the main text for training.
It is the main text that you've trained to, fair?
Yes.
It is the text that they test on when you've tested for certifications, right?
Correct.
So you've trained up to this 921, you've tested this 921, and when you taught young firefighters or fire investigators, you teach out of this book, correct?
That is one of the books.
One of the books. There are others.
There are others.
There are kind of authoritative reference guides.
Yes.
Ooh,
One
he
might be
not
the
know-
user's manual for 921.
Oh my God, he not only read The Hobbit, but he read The Lord of the Rings and The Silmarillion. Ooh. He's like, bam, reference material. He looks like, hey, look at them covers. He bought them new off of Amazon. He is very serious about this case.
That may be one.
One might be Kirk's fire investigation. We've seen that.
Yes.
You have that?
I don't know if I have the newest copy, but I have a copy.
You have a copy. John
which
Lentini's
one's
book,
glossy?
Scientific Protocols for Fire Investigation. That's a reference guide.
That
too.
is a reference guide.
Have you used it?
I can't think if I have.
Do you own it?
I do not own that one.
All these are resources for you to go to if you have questions regarding your field, right?
Correct.
And then, of course, I think the main guide for you would be a code of ethics, right? And how you do your work.
There's a personal code of ethics. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, either tell me what this man did wrong. I mean, did he show up in, like, I don't know, his furry costume? Either get to the point or freaking, be done, sir. I'm very proud of you that you read all them books, though. As a mama, I'm happy that you're reading.
I'm going to show you what we've marked as proposed Exhibit L, see if you recognize that. And you can tell us what it is.
This is a quote from the IAAI Code of Ethics that is no longer valid because there's been an update.
An update. You believe it to your core, don't you?
What?
You believe this statement to your core, don't you?
The outdated statement?
Yes.
No, Jack, that was just an outdated statement.
It's
What's if it's outdated?
because it goes to his code of ethics that he believes in. Whether it's outdated or not, he still believes in the
You've
statement.
inquired him how it's outdated, in what way, what's different?
You know why it's different now?
Yes, the IAAI committee met and updated the Code of Ethics in 2020.
Yeah.
I have a copy if you'd like.
Do you believe in the principle, I'm just going to ask you, do you believe in the principle that you should be a truth seeker and not a case maker?
Yes.
You believe that's your core?
I don't use those word core, but yes, I believe it.
Let's go to your D1 hearing at page 66. Let me know when you're there.
Say 56, 5,
66.
66.
You there?
Yes, D1, Daubert 1, page 66.
66. And we, from line 1 to 9,
Your Honor, I'm going to object because this questioning is based on the outdated statement.
that he said he believes in, Your Honor. I'm asking if he believes in a principle. It's simple.
He's basing it on prior testimony, so I'll allow.
Go ahead.
Which lines you want to review again?
1 through 11.
Yes. Yes, on line 9, my answer to that same question is I believe it to my core.
Correct. And what that means is, being a truth seeker is, you are not here to just get a conviction, right?
I am not here just to get a conviction.
You're here to offer, you're supposed to offer your objective opinion.
I am here,
You're supposed to offer an opinion. Formal question, Your Honor.
Argumentative, Mr. Mueller.
Pardon?
It's argumentative.
You are here to offer your objective opinion,
I am.
which means you'd be open to new evidence if you hear it.
I would listen to all relative evidence.
And be open to new evidence and change your mind if it drives you that way, right?
If it was properly produced and researched.
Okay. Now, can we agree that if you don't collect the data, you're violating the scientific method?
Available data.
If you don't collect all available data, you're violating scientific method.
And I'm going to go with that's relevant data. Clearly, there's an infinite amount of data out there, so it needs to be relevant data.
Well, you can't determine what's relevant until you collect the data. Then you decide. That's part of the analyzing, right? This is important, that's important.
But there's
One of the two of you better get to a flippin' flapjack point before Mama pulls this entire stream over. I mean, oh no. Oh Lord. They blow V8 on and on. Let's see if... I'm just looking for tomorrow because... Oh, okay. So it doesn't look like Mueller goes through after lunch. But he does look like this man is on for the rest of day 5. And, okay, then it looks like we've got maybe someone else. All right, you guys. Let's get back to this. Maybe they'll get to a point somewhere.
a portion of common sense of data collection.
Isn't it true that if you don't collect all the relevant data, you're violating scientific method?
Jack, can I ask the answer?
It is asked and answered, Mr. Mueller.
I think it was a simple yes or no question.
Your Honor, again,
I think
He
he's
answered it.
already.
If you don't analyze the data, you violate the scientific method, yes or no? We're on analyzing data, the next step.
It's a little different, but you can ask one more time.
Yes or no?
Correct, you must analyze the data.
If you don't develop hypotheses based on analyzing the data, you violated the scientific method, correct?
You must develop hypotheses or theories.
If you don't, then you violated the scientific method.
Correct.
Yes, okay, we
And if you don't
violated
test
it.
those hypotheses, you're violating the scientific method.
Correct.
I'm about to violate the Geneva Convention if one of the two of you don't get to a damn point. Now, I don't care which one, I'm gonna have to, take my chancla off, but daggone. It is too late in the day. I don't want to end on a rant, but y'all are pissing me off.
Correct.
And if you fail to consider alternate hypotheses, you violate the scientific method.
Reliable alternative hypothesis.
Then you violate the scientific method.
Correct.
If you violate the scientific method, you have an unreliable methodology, don't you?
Correct.
Which means unreliable can't be relied upon, correct?
Correct.
To rely, to have confidence in, to trust, right?
Correct.
And if you don't have a reliable methodology, then you don't have a reliable opinion, do you? Haven't even asked it.
All right, I'm gonna give you two the last warning. Test Jesus, not Mo, because Mo throws hands allegedly in Minecraft. So if one of the two of you don't get to a daggone point, I'm gonna have both of you go pick out your own switches, and some one of you better get to a point.
Yeah, it is asked and answered. I'll have to move on.
I've not asked that question ever.
Okay, one more time.
Shut up, dude.
If you don't have a reliable methodology, you don't have a reliable opinion, do you?
Correct.
You've heard of the phrase garbage in equals garbage out?
I have heard that.
All right.
Get to your proof, sir.
Let's go to your cause opinion. Are you comfortable that you've explained the cause of the fire to this jury?
Yes.
You wouldn't change it, would you?
No.
You know, and as I remember from my notes, the cause of the fire was the ignition source was an open flame,
Correct.
and then the first fuel ignited was gasoline.
Gasoline vapors.
Okay. And that's the cause of the fire,
Correct.
which is why you then classified it as intentional,
Incendiary. Yes.
incendiary. Okay. Give me a second, Your Honor. Okay, give me 1 second.
No, you have taken all my seconds. You keep not paying me for the seconds you've already
Go
stolen.
back.
You get no more credit.
Let's go to NFPA 921. NFPA 921 speaks to cause, doesn't it? The causal factors.
Yes.
Ooh, did we have another big poster?
I'm curious if this is going to be before the jury sees this, because I'm not sure what we're specifically looking at.
I'm going to show you, and this is not an exhibit, Your Honor, it's for impeachment and learned treatise.
Well, then he can impeach him with it, but it can't be displayed to the jury. It's not an
I
exhibit.
can read it or show it to the jury, just doesn't go back to the jury room as an exhibit.
I'll allow it for demonstrative for cross. It won't go back to the jury.
Right. Sir, you recognize those causal factors?
Yes.
NFPA 921, the premier guide for your training, lists what has to be found and determined for the cause, correct?
Correct.
The ignition source, the first fuel ignited, everybody read that? And the circumstances that brought 1 and 2 together.
Correct.
Unless you have all 3, you don't have a cause of a fire, correct?
Correct.
Which means unless you have all 3, you don't have the why. Isn't that true?
The why of the cause of the fire?
Yes, that is the why.
Correct.
Okay. Let's go to 19.4.4.1. I'm happy to give you the book if you have it.
I do.
Oh, for the love of Lemmy, what are we this is a
19,
textbook?
yes, 19.4.4.1.
Let me know when you're there.
Yes,
It says simply identifying a fuel or an ignition source by itself does not and cannot describe how a fire occurred. Did I read that correctly?
yes, that's an excerpt from that section.
That's what that says, right?
Correct?
So, what it's saying is, if we have 1 and 2 but not 3, we don't have the cause of a fire, correct?
Correct.
You've given 1 and 2 to the jury. You're comfortable with that conclusion. You didn't give 3 to the jury. You don't know the circumstances that brought that open flame to the gasoline in this 20 by 20 living room, do you?
I don't, but there's an exception in 921 that allows for that.
You don't have all 3 factors for the cause of a fire, fair?
I do have all 3 factors.
You have the circumstances, you haven't given the jury the circumstances that brought the open flame and the gasoline together, the how. True?
That has not been discussed with the jury.
Okay. That was never discussed in your report, correct?
My report from 2007, it was
Yes,
not.
the official Michigan State Police fire report of this case.
The language has changed since 2007 with these specific monikers?
Oh, you updated your report?
No, I did not.
Okay, in the report, you never listed even an open flame. We can go to your report.
I did not list an open flame.
So you did not list gasoline, strike that. You did not list first fuel being gasoline.
I did not.
And you certainly didn't list in your official report the circumstances that brought those 2 together. Fair?
I did not.
Then you've testified on several occasions, right? In this case.
Correct.
Testified in 09, didn't you?
09, that would have been the first trial? Correct.
Your Honor, can we approach?
I'm wondering what they're trying to get here. So basically, Dave, no, they can't rightly say if Linda, had Todd, incapacitated in some way and she doused him with gasoline without getting any of that on her clothing, or if there are things that were kind of in limine that they are not allowed to be bringing up. I do know that the state lost one of their expert witnesses because of, in the intervening years, some of the advanced, I guess, mass spectrometry, their graphs had been lost. So even though the expert could basically testify to all the things in the report, because those, physical readouts were no longer there, they didn't have the original evidence of what the person was interpreting. So that being said, they're pretty sure that it was gasoline, and Todd Stermer's pants were shown. Pants, socks, and underwear were all shown to have gasoline on them. Now, the state is trying to tie a gas can that was found in the front yard on the night or the day of the fire. They're trying to tie that together. Now, what the state lab doesn't do is do the sort of testing to try to link the gas from the gas can to the gas on the pants chemically. Now, I don't know if the defense has been able to do that or what, but thus far, to make a long story short, no, we don't have a lot of answers right now.
You testified, excuse me, in a prior hearing in 2009, and you laid out what you said was the cause of the fire, right?
Yes.
And you didn't mention one time an ignition source being open flame.
I can't remember what my testimony was on that.
Well, let's look at what's called PE. PE in your binder,
I've got multiple, this binder?
transcript binder?
See one that says PE on it?
The 09, correct?
Called PE. I
It
think.
doesn't say PE.
Oh, sorry.
But it says 09. All
right.
right.
Direct your attention, page 49.
Yes,
You listed as the cause of the fire, time of day, right?
yes,
I'm sorry?
yes,
Time of day, condition of the known people in the house, which means basically able-bodied people.
correct?
And you said the fire started very rapidly, larger and more rapidly than an accident fire could have started.
Correct.
And then you tied it in with gasoline on Mr. Stermer's sweatpants, right?
Correct?
Which then caused you to say it's an intentional fire.
Correct.
So when you testified that didn't lay out the circumstances that brought anything together, correct?
Correct, but there's still an
And then-
exception.
You can clear that up. You did not mention any of the circumstances, fair?
Correct.
Okay. Then you testified in 2010 and went through the same thing and never mentioned an ignition source of open flame, correct?
Correct.
Never
Well,
mentioned,
I don't know. I don't recall my testimony verbatim from 2010.
okay. Do you recall that the first time, when I asked you, the first time you testified to an open flame and gasoline as an ignition, first fuel ignited, was in our hearing in 2021?
I recall that testimony.
Okay.
That being discussed in the testimony, I don't recall if that was the first time that was mentioned.
In fact, to this date, in 18 years, you've never set forth in a report or testimony the circumstances that brought forth your open flame gasoline, correct?
I think I just did it today in testimony.
Didn't you just tell us you did 1 and 2, but not 3?
No,
There were open flames. I mean, the gasoline ignites as a vapor, not as the liquid. So you don't have to have, pour patterns and pour, everything up to Mr. Stermer. Linda, let's take some gremlin could have poured gasoline all up on the living room floor. Now, that being said, I don't know why you would do that. Then if he had both a fireplace and oil lamps going, or whatever they had going, be it, the catalytic fragrance lamp or the actual just oil lamps. They also had candles going. So you have open flame with which the fire vapors are going to react. So MLS, the defense has posited that the gas could have come from the, neighbor's clothing. Now, the problem with that is that the lab tech did testify that with the concentrations of gasoline that he found on the disparate items, so there was less gasoline from the jacket than there was on Todd Stermer's pants, socks, underwear, and socks, because they separated them between 2 paint cans. But basically, all of Todd's clothing that came off of Todd's body had a greater concentration of gasoline. So in the lab technician's expert opinion, he said it was more likely that the gasoline would have transferred from Todd's clothing onto the jacket when he looked at the concentrations. So the defense had put that out there as a sort of idea, but we did get a lab technician who kind of may have put doubt about, the defense putting that out there for the jurors.
that I haven't explained, there's an exception for the 3 with the 1 and 2 being brought together.
You did not, in any direct testimony, set forth the circumstances that brought 1 and 2 together.
Objection has been answered.
He keeps disputing that he did.
Because you won't let him answer the question, Your Honor.
It's asked and answered.
Thank you. Now, in terms of, you certainly know the difference as to what a causal factor is in terms of ignition source, correct?
Causal factor? Yes.
That's ignition source and first fuel.
Correct.
And you've been under oath saying that the time of day was a causal factor, correct?
I've never used the word causal factor.
It was a cause of the fire.
No, it was a circumstance of the fire.
Is there anywhere in NFPA 921 that says time of day is a cause of the fire?
No,
There's no reference manual anywhere that you've been trained on that says time of day is a cause of the fire.
no,
Am I right?
correct.
There's no authority that you've ever heard of that says time of day is a cause of the fire.
Correct.
Accidental fires happen all the time in the daytime, right?
Correct.
Then the next thing you had, and we can talk about that PE again at page 49, was two able-bodied people.
Correct.
Is there anything in NFPA 921, this principal guide, if there is, I'd like you to cite it for our jury and any peers who are watching, anything that says the condition of people are a cause of the fire?
It does not.
No authoritative guide, no somebody you look and respect has ever told you that, correct?
Correct.
You've never taught that, correct?
Correct.
You've never been tested where that was an answer as a cause of a fire. Two able-bodied people,
No.
am I right?
Correct.
Able-bodied people die in fires all the time, unfortunately,
Correct.
just like disabled people like you told us, right?
Correct.
You didn't mention that you've investigated many fires involving able-bodied people who were seriously injured or died, fair?
That is correct.
And then, of course, another factor you said in that preliminary hearing was the speed of the fire, correct?
Correct.
Now, you know, sir, from all your training and expertise, that how fast a fire progresses is based on a lot of different factors, right?
Correct.
One of the factors is the construction of the house,
That is one.
because that depends on fuel loads, right? That,
More than just fuel loads. Depends on fuel loads.
Did they build the house with tannerite?
Container size, room size, configuration.
fire will spread faster if you have more ventilation. It takes oxygen to feed a fire.
Correct.
So it's not simply a fire was fast and therefore it had to be an accelerant, fair?
That is fair.
And certainly you can't rely on eyewitness testimony, the subjective testimony of, ooh, it was burning fast.
Not by itself, no.
You were aware that when some of the first witnesses showed up, that they saw a fire coming through the roof on the north side of, not the north side of the house, on the back side of the house,
The west side, yes.
west side? We don't have it here, right?
Correct.
By where the bay windows were?
It was, yeah, there were some statements of through the roof in the center of the house.
Don't put your exhibits by a furnace.
Your Honor, can I ask that we take some of these demonstrative exhibits down if they're not going to be used anymore?
All right. Well, Mr. Moe is home, and apparently we need to have a grown folks talk. Now, I won't be doing any laundry, so fear not for Mr. Moe's safety, for I will be doing not one bit of laundry. So that being said, I hope you guys will join me and Shizzy Wiznut tomorrow morning on my channel. For Weekend Roundup. It's kind of the place where him and I hang out and try to, make each other snort laugh with the absurdity that we have found on the internet. So, it's always a fun time. We go back and forth. So this week it's on my channel, and next Friday it will be on his channel, but it is a fun time. And then tomorrow we will probably continue on with day 5. I just realized we've still got, till after lunch with this man, and good Lord. At least tomorrow I will be able to have an adult beverage in the afternoon, because good Lord, it looks like I'm going to need it. I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you for riding aboard the Petty Express, where the snark and, wit, helps with these sort of dark cases. Because when you break it down, Todd Stermer died an awful death. And, we need some humor to get through these, and with the defense attorneys and the state attorneys, to be honest, and just everyone in this case, just about. I will see you guys in a little bit in the morning. Bye, you guys.